Hi, everybody. My name is Larry Jacobs. This is Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio, and it's March 28th, 2023, and we have old friends back with us today, although I haven't met Ronn yet. Ronn Nozoe is my guest today. He's the CEO of the National Association of Secondary School Principals, and NASSP hasn't been on for a while, so it's a pleasure to be back in touch. Thank you, Adam, over there. And we're going to work together, I hope, a lot in the future. It's just so great to have the National Association of Secondary School Principals. We work closely with the National Association of Elementary School Principals, NAESP, okay? And I know they're working together, Ron and his group, and Earl Franks and the NAESP group, okay, in Advocacy Week for working as principals carrying the message of school principals to the folks up on the Hill. So we're going to have a nice conversation with Ron today and talk about what's going on over there. We're going to archive the show over at ace-ed.org. ace-ed.org is the home website of our American Consortium for Equity in Education. Okay, if you go over there, you'll see this podcast, and the podcast link, every podcast we do is over there. Our magazine, Equity and Access, okay, plus a lot of other information. Everything we do over there is free, so please go over and check it out over at ace-ed.org. I think you'll be impressed. I know we are, and we do it every day. Okay, without further ado, Ronn Nozoe, I'm Larry. Welcome to the show.
Aloha, Larry. Thanks very much. It's great to meet you. I really appreciate you reaching out to connect, and we can talk a little bit about the work that you've done and doing and the work that we're doing here in partnership with NAESP.
And you guys do great work all the time. It's just a pleasure to have NASSP back here. And, well, I know you're in Washington. You're working with Earl. Please tell him if you see him today, I said hello. We work together a lot.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I was just with him and said, hey, I got to go and talk with these folks. And he was like, oh, yeah, tell Larry I said hi. So
there you go. Hi. Okay, but I will say it quite simply, and he'll laugh. My favorite trumpet-playing band director. He's the best.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. We haven't yet gotten him to get on stage and play his trumpet, but we're working on it.
I think you need a concert from Earl Franks over there. Again, Earl's great over at NAESP. Actually, he should blow the horn like Gabriel's coming up the steps of the Capitol as you're going up there for the advocacy. By the way, before I forget, I want to mention one of your colleagues over there. What did I do with it? Here it is, okay? I think you know this lady, Melissa Schindel.
Oh, yeah, from Maryland.
Yeah, and Melissa was just named the NASSP 2023 Advocacy Champion of the Year. And she's the principal of Glenwood Middle School in Glenwood, Maryland. Okay, so congratulations, Melissa. She does good work. Anything you want to say on that, Ron?
Well, yeah, no, she's really a perfect example of, I think, what we're going to talk about today, which is elevate their voice and, add some real meat to the conversations about education policy and the direction and really making sure that principals' voices are heard in the most important policy and direction-setting conversations in our country. So, yeah, when we recognized her, of course, she was like, oh, my God, like, looking around the room to see who she could celebrate, and then she realized it was her. So I literally told her, well, that's why you won, because she's thinking that everybody else is doing this amazing job. And that's really, I mean, just think about it. That's just principals as you know it. They always think it's somebody else. They're always elevating other people around them, and sometimes it's nice to just recognize folks that generally would like to recognize everybody else in their orbit except for themselves.
Yeah, that is nice, and congratulations to Melissa. Maybe we'll get her on the show one of these days. She can tell us about all the stuff she's doing over at Glenwood, and I think that's just great. Congratulations to her. All about advocacy. That's what it is. And Ron, let's start there. All of the organizations go up and they advocate for education, and I think that's important. I had the NAGC, the Gifted Children's Association, on just this morning, and they just did their advocacy conference and all that sort of thing. And I work with a lot of the associations, and I think it's great that we get leaders together and do it. But as principals, particularly of secondary school principals, middle and high school, okay, talk about what's on the mind of principals as they go up those steps and talk? And I know a lot of it is the same and it's overlap, but it's good to drill it into the heads of all our congressmen and senators. Okay, but just talk about the principal specifically. What are you guys really advocating for?
Well,
Ron.
First of all, back up a little bit here.
Sure.
The reason why it's so important, and this is Larry. I know you've been tooting this horn, using the Earl analogy. You've been tooting this horn forever, but it's so important for principals to, have an opportunity to engage with not only their local electeds and policymakers, but also at the national level. Because, one thing that's common, I've traveled all around the country talking with our members. We all have come up in similar ways. We were all teachers. We were all that teacher, the one that our principal then was like, hey, Ron, hey, Larry, need a favor. We need this thing. We don't have the resources at the time or whatever, but we need you to take this crazy project that we need to get done and turn it into something that, really works for kids and for families. And so all of our members have been that teacher. And then now that they're in the role, our members have years of experience and years of training. And they're they're the kind of problem solvers that are not common in today's world. They take, a myriad of issues and forces and, influence, and then they turn it into gold and then deliver it back to their communities with a big smile on their face. And because of that experience and that because of that years of working through these sort of unnavigable things, they are a very, very important, often unheard voice in the K-12 continuum, because, there's a lot of people that take up a lot of space talking about what's supposed to happen in education, but sadly, folks don't ever think, maybe we should ask the people who have actually put all these things together and delivered them in their local context. And, only 12%, we just recently surveyed our school leaders, and only 12% of them felt that their opinion is represented, quote, a great deal, end quote, in federal policy. And, this is, in this day and age, with folks being focused on credibility and authenticity, we're real excited when folks like you and others are like, hey, we really want to know what the principals think. So I didn't mean to take us off a little bit, but I just wanted
you did good. You did good. That's exactly why you're here. So let me ask the question: what do principals think? What are they thinking about?
Well, principals are thinking about two big blocks of things, and I'll start with their focus on students and the folks that serve students in their schools. They are deeply, deeply concerned, and this is nationally, and there's very little separation, across political and party lines, across red state, blue state. There's very little separation here. Principals are deeply concerned about the well-being of their students, and they're deeply concerned about the well-being of the educators on their campuses and the support staff on their campuses, and as we all know, with the building block of health and wellness in this country, really having healthy relationships and having the supports that people need to be able to make sure that they're Maslow's hierarchy, are their immediate needs being met? And of course you more than most know how wild this has been. So the well-being, the mental health and well-being of students and staff is top of mind, and very close to that, and they're directly related, is the concerns about the educator pipeline, the pipeline for folks to serve in classified positions at the school cafeterias, bus drivers, office staff, paraprofessionals. That pipeline, as you know, has been seriously challenged, as many markets, but especially in K-12. And then, Absolutely. Of course, the teacher and principal and assistant teacher, assistant principal, ultimately superintendent pipeline. Our members are concerned that there's a lot of turnover at the superintendent level. And
there is,
that continuity of leadership is so important to make sure that we don't get caught up in these crazy pendulum swings. And so the two things, again, are
interesting,
are connected, but really well-being of students, staff, and community members, and then the impact of that on the educator pipeline, including support staff and all the important folks that help to make a school the special places that they are.
And Ron, I couldn't agree more with you on all that. And I loved what you said. It doesn't matter red state, blue state. The principals are concerned about their kids. okay, in the schools, okay, and
Yep.
their safety and their mental health, well-being, their academic advancement, okay, and all the challenges like the teacher retention and all that goes with it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are in the country. Okay, that's the concern of a principal. Okay, and I also agree, and thank you for saying that. And I also agree, you know, that the mental health, the social well-being, the social emotional learning, et cetera, that's a key, and that relates directly, in my opinion, to that teacher pipeline. Okay, you know, that and teacher retention is just top of mind these days. Which brings me to a question. And this is the tough one. I agree. Those are the challenges. I couldn't agree with you more, and it was well said by you, Ron. Okay, but when you carry those challenges, and you do this up the steps of the Capitol or to the, you know, into their offices, what do you ask them for? Do you just want them to recognize this is the challenge, or do you ask the staff members, which I'm sure are who you're talking to? You might hit the occasional congressman, okay? But when you, what do you propose to them? What are you asking them to do? Just be aware, or actually make something happen?
I'm glad that it's so refreshing to talk with someone who really understands, and so I appreciate you, brother. Like, we haven't met in person, man. But I tell just by how you approach it that you are a true student of the game, and that your heart is genuinely in support here. So our members, you know, first thing we want to do is we want to practice what we preach and model the behavior. So we want to establish a relationship. We want to set a level of level of humanity to the conversation. So people in these, you know, very important and very powerful folks in these elected offices can actually get a real taste of what this means in the day-to-day. And so establishing having our members get up there and talk about the impact of the funding and policy and the impact of what it means to have these sources either cut or reduced or taken away, or on the flip side, like what it means with an influx of funding and support for those, and how could policies be changed. So really just establishing this is how it is in the real world. This is how it is in the field. This is how it is every day in my school or my district. Yeah. That's the first step. And then to your point, the next part is once to have that conversation, then our members will come in and start talking about, like, well, these are the needs that we have, and these are the ways in which whatever decisions or policies that the folks up on the Hill are coming up with, these are the ways it can positively impact. Because we know that everyone on the Hill, everyone just wants kids to be all right and have a future and be happy and healthy and successful and confident in themselves and have a future and can problem solve. And so it's really trying to take away all that politics and focus in on what we all know to be just good human characteristics and behavior, and making sure that folks understand that this is really about making sure that every single person that our members interact with, that we help them be better tomorrow than they were today. And it's just really an opportunity for our members to go and connect on a real grassroots level, but then also talk about what kinds of needs they have, and how, and share the suggestions with their respected elected officials about how, you know, we're not experts in you know, congressional policy in that. We're experts in school. So we'll lay it out for them so that they can understand, like, oh, okay, maybe we could shape a policy this way, or maybe we could tweak the bill or tweak the resolution in that way so that it can better meet the needs of folks. And really, that's what this whole purpose of us advocating on the Hill is for.
Yeah, and I hope they are very receptive to it. And believe me, I understand. You know, every group in the world, the Cement Mixers Association, also walks up there once a year. Okay, and your Congress people are going to be polite to them as well, as they should be. Okay, so they can't be Jacks and Jills of all trades. This is important. And the one thing about education, it affects everybody, and it's the one thing that everybody in the United States has in common. We all went through this. Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, it's something that we just got to really jump on and make it happen. Something else I have to ask you, and I have to put this show in a little bit of historical perspective, so because people listen, you know, it's on podcasts. A lot of people listen on archives, and today is the day after that horror in Nashville. Okay. Yesterday, where that person whose name I shall not ever mention, okay, walked into school and killed 6 people. 3 of them were children. all right? And it's terrible, and we all know that. Okay, and you're with the whole group now, and the principals, boy, I'll tell you, talk about a teacher pipeline and all this sort of thing. As you talk to your group, it affects them emotionally, but they have to carry that emotion. Okay, and I feel so bad for the folks in Nashville, but they have to carry that emotion up to the hill. And what's your thoughts on that? And also just on school safety from your group's point of view, from the NASSP.
Yeah, again, going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like safety and security, fundamental human needs, and so we are a nonpartisan, apolitical organization.
Absolutely.
As I we orient around how can we best help kids become the best versions of themselves, and how can we help the folks who serve kids be the best versions of themselves. And so we go up there and we don't get into you should do this and you should do that. We don't around the spaces that we are not experts in. We're not experts in gun control and all, but we do talk about the implications of safety and how important it is for at a fundamental core of humanity that people what are we talking about here? That like people have to be prepared for. It seems like every day this week, gun violence in the school. Come on now, like this is let's step our political lines and let's not get to that kind of conversation. Let's just talk about every child, every educator, every family member, every person who goes to school, went to school, drives by a school, deserves to be safe. This is not something that nobody.
It's a basic human right.
Absolutely wants that, and so we're just trying to remind people, like, the political fights are the political fights. Y'all stay over there and do that, but please, 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 please protect the sanctity and safety of school, because for many of the students that we serve. Many of the students that we serve in this country, and sadly that percentage increases, which more than anybody. Every year it just keeps going up of the percentage of children and families that are peril and at risk. As more and more Americans go through this every day in their daily lives, the absolute last place that they should have a concern about that is in a school. And so, can we all just figure out how to put down our fights for a minute and just step back from all of that and just talk about what can we do to make a school safer. And our members were talking about that very thing before I stepped out to join this call with you. We're just talking about this very that people could do to make sure that their schools were, more engaging, more family oriented, more, just how can we be more welcoming in schools so that people feel like, they can leave all that stuff outside the school wall and then come in and then really participate in some open and honest dialogue about how do we help our kids just be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, we have to do that. It goes back to what you said before, and I just want to say this, the horror in Nashville yesterday is all over the news. It's all over the newspapers. People are talking. Okay. Kids hear this. They may not be in Nashville. Those kids are traumatically, they have to go through a lot. Okay. Having lived through that, but every kid knows about this. Colloquially, every kid knows about this. Okay. And it's scary. All right. When I was in school, the thought of having a lockdown, it doesn't even make sense. It was from the realm when I went to school 1,000 years ago. But, all of this, okay, has to do with the way teachers teach. Principals have to lead teachers through this in these crazy times. And they have to deal with kids who are traumatized by this, whether God forbid it happens at your school, but whether it happens at your school or not. All right. And it's a tough road to hoe to be a principal these days. And especially after COVID, let's add that into it too, and on that note, I have to ask Ron, what's the principal, and I've heard stories, but you'll know better than me. What's the principal pipeline like these days? How are you advocating to get more people to become principals? Okay, because that is as hard as getting somebody to become a teacher. It's nuts out there right now.
Before we move on to the pipeline, I want to just add a little bit here to sort of put an exclamation point on the point you just made. So our members are so sick and tired of these school shootings that a bunch of principals.
They aren't the only ones. They aren't the only ones. A bunch of principals who have unfortunately led or were part of these school shootings got together, and in partnership with NASSP, we're very proud that we supported them in forming what's called the Principals Recovery Network. And this is a group of principals, assistant principals who have lived through, were there, are still suffering from the issues. And what they did was they have gotten together and they, in partnership with us, have written a guide for recovery that when they started with it, and Frank DeAngelis, the principal of Columbine High School, is the principal figure behind that. Him. He's been on the show back the one that was there when the horror happened. So they got together and they started out with a mission of writing a guide for if this happens, because there's a whole bunch of things that no one knows about, like that need to be attended to in the aftermath of in the immediate period right after the event, and then of course years after, because these, as you well know, these things don't go away. These people are impacted for life, right? And so they wrote a guide for recovery that is a real practitioner's take at what needs to happen. And I was fortunate to be with them a number of times, but I was with them on the anniversary of Columbine. And one of the founding members of the Recovery Network came back and said, we originally wrote it in a way as here's what you do as a response. But if you flip the perspective on it, it really could be a guide to proactively address the kinds of things that you have to reactively address after such an event. You could proactively, and so you take that very same guide, but if you change your lens to it, it could be a guide to how you create the school culture and the systems at your school that people really feel connected. So, every kid feels like there's a connection to a meaningful connection to an adult. Everybody has systems to feel like if they're going through something, they know who to reach out to. And so, just a shout out to the Principals Recovery Network, because, and we said, like, it is just a terrible thing that a bunch of principals have to write a guide like this. Yes,
that's the world we've been living in and living through. Yep. And so, if somebody needed a resource, we're very proud that resource comes from people who've been there, done that, and unfortunately have all the scars and experiences to prove it. And so that's that on safety. So your question about the pipeline, like the teacher pipeline, is challenged, and I was fortunate to be talking on a panel that involved teachers and superintendents and school board members. And what I said to the group was, just remember that your teacher pipeline is also your principal pipeline, is also your superintendent pipeline. So boards, organizations that have it, know that they need to invest in the whole thing from soup to nuts, because all of us, as I mentioned earlier in the show, all of us as principals have come up through the teacher ranks, and so we wouldn't be as principals and assistant principals had we not started in the teacher profession. So, right now the principal pipeline, two things. The principal pipeline is challenged because, one, there's an overall shortage of teachers. People have seen what principals have been through, being vilified and people frustrated, understandably. But, principals are their friends, not their enemies. And, our principals, as you all know, nobody goes into education to be rich and famous. They go in because they care about helping others. And so, the stress on them and our members and folks that we're thinking about or in the early stages of pre-service training, the stress on that pipeline is really, really profound, because people want to come in and do this because they care about others and they want to help other people be the best they can be. But then they're like, wait a minute, I'm going to get dragged through the mud and treated this way. And so that's the challenge. And then ultimately really challenging because our members are talking about like, hey, I have a great superintendent, but they're leaving because of this, that, or the other. They've had enough.
That's right.
You know, there's different direction at the school board level, and you know, this pendulum swinging back and forth, as you well know, is not what our country needs right now. We need to stop the radical swings from one end to the
That's
next
right.
and stay focused
That's
on
right.
moving the middle. Let's get focused on everybody centered around kids, which is why we're all here. And so the pipeline challenge has been continues to be a rough one. And you know, thankfully, lots of folks are talking about how can we incentivize it, and how can we. And our stance is the CV or you went to school 20 years ago does not qualify you to be a school leader. It takes years of training and and frankly, myself is the first example. You got to make a couple of mistakes along the way before you learn to hone your craft. And so, you know, we need this time and space here. We do not want to have unqualified folks. You know, that is something that our association feels very strongly about is principals. It's hard work to be a good school leader, and it's hard work to be a good public servant. And folks need the time and space to be able to be trained, and a safe space to make some mistakes, you know, before they quote unquote go live with it. And so we're trying to find all these ways to never lower the bar, but provide more opportunities and supports for folks to develop their skill set perhaps quicker than they might have anticipated. Give them more experiences and you know, more condensed than it historically would have been. You know, when I started as a principal, back then it was like you spend the whole first year just trying to understand what's happening and building relationships. And you well know that, like, you know, nobody has a year to do any of that now, right? You got to jump right in, and you have to you have to be motivational, inspirational, supportive, and smart, and all of that like on day one. And so it continues to be a big stressor on the pipeline. But the second point I want to make is, you know, you've seen our surveys where our members have said they're stressed out. 50% of our members just surveyed said their mental health and well-being challenges are exacerbating. It's accelerating their desire to say, hey, look, I'm done. I'm throwing in the towel. But what was really, really, really refreshing and inspirational to me was all of a sudden our members started talking about, wait a minute, I'm stressed out, my staff's stressed out, but if I leave, then who's going to do this?
Yeah.
And so as every great educator has done and will continue to do, say, you know what, I'm going to put all that in sort of the back burner, which is not healthy, but it is necessary. I'll put it all in the back burner because I have to be there for my school community, my kids, the educators on my campus, the support staff on my campus. Because if I you know, throw in the towel and walk out the door, then who's gonna lead the school, and who's gonna help the kids keep moving forward? Right. And so,
that's right. And what you said before, I'm going to stop you for a second. What you said before. Yep. You know, you can't just bring somebody in to run a school. You can't just bring somebody in with no experience and say you're now a teacher. Okay? That's why we have education schools and principal training and all that sort of thing. And, you know, and I'm going to say this. I don't want you to say anything because I don't want you to get involved in politics. But, you know, in certain states, I'll say it that way, they are getting overly involved in chasing teachers and principals and superintendents out of the profession. And they think they're going to be easily replaced. And they are, and your point is so well taken, they are not easily replaced. They are not. Okay? And just ask anyone, okay, about that. And, you know, there are districts I know of that have to hire uncertified people who just want to try teaching. They never went to college for it or anything like that. And those people last about a year, if they last a year. Okay? That's not the way it works. And your point was well taken. If we don't learn a lesson from this, we got to make teaching an important and relevant and well-paid profession. Obviously, principalship as well, education, I should say. Okay, and that way we're going to get the right people into it. Okay, and we got to get this politics out of it. I know you're up there on the Hill this week, but they have to understand this. They have to understand this. They're chasing the good people out. I'm very concerned about this, and I think you're probably concerned about it too, Ron. You know?
Oh, we are, and I agree with you that, like, you know, the education system in our country is based on the the making sure that we have a healthy democracy, right?
Exactly.
That people can and think on their own and make their own decisions, and be good, be kind to each other, and treat each other with respect. And I mean, those are the fundamental American values. So we're not trying to fight with anybody, right? We want parents. Parents,
we just want to. That's the point. We just want to teach your kids. Parents
lived through it in the pandemic. They know how hard it is to teach kids, and so there was a groundswell of that for a minute, and then what happened after that, I'm not commenting on, but I think we just need to get back in touch with the acknowledgement that, like, this is not something that you can just watch a YouTube video and go do tomorrow. This is a profession that's training and support, and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years of development and practice, and as I said, frankly, making some mistakes along the way, having a learner's mindset on how to get better. These things take time, and but we're not asking for forgiveness. We're just asking for, like, hey, can we all get behind this, because it is in everyone's best interest for us to make sure that our schools bring out the best in every single kid.
Yeah, well, you're not kidding. Hey, Ron, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned you were a principal. Where are you from? How'd you get involved in the association like this and become CEO? That's really cool. That's a nice trajectory.
I've been a teacher, principal, district superintendent, state deputy. I'm from the 50th state, the Aloha State, Hawaii. I was very fortunate there to be Aloha. I was very fortunate there to be mentored and raised by outstanding. As a teacher, I was mentored by outstanding teachers, and I had an amazing principal. And then I never wanted to leave the classroom ever. It was the best job ever. And my principal, who I love to this day, sort of tricked me, quote unquote, tricked every educator, every principal or assistant principal knows what I'm talking about. She gave me the speech. Well, imagine you're doing such great work with your 150. I was a secondary language arts teacher, so you're doing such great work with your 150 students. Imagine the difference you could make if you supported a whole bunch of teachers in the school to do the same thing. And so I got dragged into it, and then loved the principalship, and then ended up, well, anyway, long story short, ended up being a district superintendent, state deputy. And my mom and dad were both public educators. My mom an elementary school teacher for 40 years. My dad was a secondary teacher and coach and administrator, principal, and then central office guy for almost 40 years as well. And my dad raised me around this in the Hawaii vernacular. He used to tell me all the time, boy, remember, no kids, no job. Don't you ever forget. And so I just tried to be the best person I could possibly be, keeping kids at the forefront of it all. And then I just ended up, I was a member of both NAESP and NASSP coming up as a profession, because we were back then that's, if you're going to be a professional, then you need to be a member of a professional organization. We are not a union, as you well know. We are a professional organization that elevates the practice and showcases and elevates the practice of the principalship. And so I was a member of that. And so when the folks reached out and said, hey, would you think about coming back to NASSP? I was like, dude, this would be, talk about being able to give back to people who helped me become marginal or okay, educator and okay school leader. That's no-brainer for me to try to give back to the organization.
Wow, how long have you been now the CEO?
I've been there. I started in. I'm a pandemic CEO, so I started in December of 2020. So it's been a little over 2 years now, I think. And it seems like yesterday, and then it seems like dog years too. It seems like 14 plus years, but it also seems like I just started yesterday.
Wow. And I think it's a wonderful trajectory, the way you've moved up on that. And I always find Hawaii fascinating, because there's only one school district in the whole state. I always find that a fascinating thing. They didn't even break it up. They didn't even break it up island by island, which I found amazing. It's the whole schmear as though it's one district. That must have been odd when you see it now. When you come over to the contiguous 48, it must be weird.
We're a tiny state, a tiny state in terms of population.
Sure.
But when we flip our hat around, because we are unitary, we're also the 9th largest school district in the country. And so
wow. I didn't know that.
Hawaii's success, first of all, great educators in Hawaii and folks that are heroes to me to this day. Like, but our success was acting like a school district when we were a state and acting like a state when we were a school district. That literally
wow.
was the best leverage both.
Wow. It's so interesting, and I'm so glad you're in the position you're in now. You're doing a good job, my friend. We got to leave, but you tell Earl Franks and your group. Oh, also to Adam Lane, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago from Haines City. I know he's with you. Yeah, he's there, isn't he? I was
up with Adam a few minutes ago, or earlier this morning. So yeah, I'll tell him you said hi, and I'll tell Earl
I said hi. He's a good man.
That you said
he's a good man.
There and blow his horn.
And he's done a great job. You know, something I remember from my conversation with him. He has worked hard as a principal to make friends, to get to know his congressman literally, okay, and really work with the person, okay, so that the person understands the needs of Haines City, who they represent. And I thought that was very impressive. He's a good man, Adam. So tell him I said hi.
We're on the radio here, so I'm sure I'm going to get this number wrong, but he told me that one of the things he's most proud of is he's now got, I think it was 50 something. It could be 40 something. Language arts teacher, right? So not so good with the number here, but he said that it was between 40 and 50 of his staff members are graduates of his school.
Yes.
Former graduates of school.
Yes.
I literally told him, man, you don't need to tell me any other indicator. You're doing a great job, because if people feel so connected to your school that they come back after school to serve at your school, you did a great job.
Yeah, and my standing joke with that is that you can always get kids to come back and become teachers when you tell them. You know, when you do that, you can call all your teachers by their first name. That's the fun of it. Okay, that's the fun of it. Okay. Hey, Ron, we'll do more. We'll get together, and I know you're busy down there, so thank you for being with us today. That was great. I loved it.
Hey, look, thank you for continuing to shine a light on the things that matter in education. Larry, I appreciate your knowledge and your expertise and your passion for education too. Keep up the great work, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. Back at you, my friend. Okay, we'll talk again soon and have a good time. Okay, with the gang. Go advocate. Have fun. Get it done. Get it done.
Aloha.
Take care. Aloha to you, my friend. Be good.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow. Hey, everybody. That's great. Be back in touch with NASSP. Ronn Nozoe is the CEO. Okay. Thank you, Adam Davis down there, for helping me put this together. And this is great. And hello to Earl and hello to Adam, etc. Principles are important. And he was dead on right. You got to have experience to do this job. We can't just put warm bodies in there. Okay, it makes a difference. Okay, and that's what we're going to be talking about a lot. This teacher-principal pipeline thing is very dangerous, and they better understand the importance of this in D.C. and every state capital. I'm Larry Jacobs. We're going to archive over at ace-ed.org, and thanks for listening.